All right, so fuck your personal lives. Let's get started. This week we're gonna be talking about, um, I guess, should college athletes get paid? I'm
Oh
actually not too
man.
sure why this actually came up recently. Was there something specific that happened?
Yeah, I mean, this has been like a topic that's kind of been um, talked about for a couple of decades now in particular, but specifically what's been happening is this Supreme Court case. You could essentially think of it as college athletes versus the NCAA. The Supreme Court is currently hearing arguments referencing limiting compensation for student athletes. So the short of it is, it's more complicated than that, but the short of it is that there's essentially two sides of an argument. One side is the NCAA side, which thinks student athletes should be that, student athletes. They shouldn't be treated as employees. They're student athletes. Many of them get scholarships and other benefits in order to be a part of their athletics program and be a part of their team and participate. But they're against college athletes being paid. And then there's the other side, which can't speak for every college athlete, but a lot of college athletes and also past college athletes, professional players, namely Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, advocate for college athletes being paid for their services. For their services. That's kind of a loaded term in and of itself. But the reason why this is the case is that college athletics in the United States is big, big, big money.
So when people are talking about college athletics, are they talking about every sport, or are there specific sports that are like that are like a part of that conversation about getting paid?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
because some sports obviously generate more revenue than others. Some
Yeah.
are more polarizing than others. The big ones, of course, college basketball and college football. Those are the probably when you think of college athletes, college athletics in this argument, you're absolutely thinking about those two. Those are the top of the food chain.
The biggest in the country. Now, there's other sports that encompass college athletics, but men's football and basketball are probably some of the most watched sports in like the U.S. I know I watch college football. I like it better than the NFL, me personally. So yeah, there's massive revenues that are generated from college athletics. Funny enough, you would think that the schools themselves would make a lot of money, and they have a lot of revenue coming in, but it's actually very few schools, even schools with like major men's football and basketball programs, very few of them actually like make money.
Yeah.
Less like expenses and things of that nature. Actually, our alma mater, Penn State University, 2018, 2019. Let's see how much money. So college athletics pulled in $164,500,000 basically. So $164 million. Penn State athletics pulled in.
That's a lot of chicken.
That's top 10. That's top 10.
I actually got a question about this, and maybe this can start off just talking about the NCAA or NCAA.
Mm-hmm.
But like they're like what exactly is their role in all of this? Because I'm trying to think of like compensation wise, like what do they get versus what each university gets? Because I've also heard things about like the NCAA is supposed to be a nonprofit and stuff like that, but really the way they get around with like saying that they're not making any profit, it's just that they're spending a tremendous amount of money. But I guess I'm interested. I isn't sure like what's the role of the NCAA and what's the role specifically of like the universities and like in just the system.
Okay, so here's my understanding of it. So basically, there's college athletics. So there's like Penn State University. There's thousands of schools who have athletic programs. The NCAA is essentially a nonprofit that regulates student athletes and college sports in the United States. So you could probably think a little bit over 1,000 of I don't want to say the biggest, but the most they oversee essentially all of major college athletics. So they set rules for the student athletes, they set rules for the schools, They set rules of engagement, and they're essentially a sanctioning body. That's the way I like to think about it.
Wait, so are they a monopoly in the same way Google is, meaning they're destroying the competition, or are there or did they actually put push for legislation in place to make themselves the only legitimate I guess organization for college sports?
Well, a lot of it is historical, but NCAA has essentially established itself as the only game in town when it comes to sanctioning major athletic sports. Even the individual conferences you could think of as units of competition. So for example, the Big Ten has a set number of schools that regularly compete each other. Schools can compete outside of the Big Ten, but that's their own unit. The NCAA is kind of the umbrella, and then under them are the conferences: Big Ten, Big 12, Big East, SEC, etc. And yeah, they're pretty much the only game in town. So you can kind of think of them as a monopoly. They are a nonprofit. They operate as such. However, they do pull in close to $1 billion as of now annually. Vast majority of it coming from TV deals from March Madness. That's their huge cash cow. March Madness is the Division I men's basketball tournament, the major one, where 65 teams, 65 of the best teams compete for the college basketball national championship, and it pulls in crazy money every single year. You probably know people with brackets. You probably had a bracket. It's one of the major American sort of sporting events that happens on an annual basis. Congratulations to Baylor, by the way.
Baylor Bears.
Yeah, my mom was watching it too because she told a story a long time ago, years ago. Because she watches sports and stuff, and Gonzaga was a no-name team. This was way back in the day, and then my dad, I forgot who they were going against, and my dad was like, "Yeah, these guys are going to get trashed." And then my mom was like, "Nah, I'm betting on Gonzaga," and then he ended up winning. So it's just interesting anecdote, but yeah, it's big money, and a lot of economists actually consider NCAA a cartel due to their exclusive monopoly over college athletics. They're kind of like OPEC, but there's not Saudi Arabia and other countries. There's just the NCAA.
Said OPEC. I'm done.
Yeah, no, that's how it's seen. So essentially, where this whole argument centers is that there's so many people and entities that profit off of college athletics, but not the athletes themselves. So the NCAA divides college athletes into divisions 1, 2, and 3. Divisions 1 and 2 are, those. Division 3 isn't really so much a part of the conversation, even though it could be in theory. They generally don't receive, schools aren't allowed to give out athletic scholarships. But in Division 1 and 2, those students get scholarships, and particularly Division 1 athletics, mainly men's basketball and football. Those are the major cash cow sports. TV deals, I know Viacom, CBS, NBC, Disney, ABC, college,
Fox as well.
Literally every major networks, including ESPN, including several cable networks, and including several online platforms, have deals with the NCAA and respective schools.
And you could take it a step further, dude. There's levels to it. The SEC has had exclusive deal with CBS for years now.
Yep.
And even further, all the major conferences pretty much have their own channel now. There's the SEC network. The Big Ten network came out when we were still at Penn State. That's when the Big Ten network had its inaugural season, I think in 2010 or 2011, toward the end of my tenure at Penn State. And even a step further, there are certain schools that have exclusive TV deals.
Absolutely.
Notre Dame has an exclusive deal with NBC. Like that school by itself has its own channel. Like they only, like NBC only does Notre Dame games are only on NBC. That's the only place you can see them, unless it's a college football playoff, obviously. But it's big money, man. It's big business, as Nino Brown would say from New Jack City.
Notre Dame. I mean, if they were good, if they were any good, but no, I'm kidding. But kidding, not kidding. But yeah, in the past, NCAA has faced like a ton of lawsuits over their monopoly status. So basically, the main argument is that all these entities, television networks, universities themselves, staff, even the coaches of these school teams. I think the statistic is in the vast majority of states in the United States, the highest paid public employee is a football coach of the state university. So that's like huge. So everyone is making money, but the main product is the athletes themselves. They're the ones who train. They're the ones who get injured. They're the ones who, especially in the case of football, put their lives on the line. But really, the only thing that they're getting is a scholarship. You know, if you're one of the lucky few to get a scholarship, right? Which is not nothing. 4 years at a major university, that's nothing to scoff at. But it could be argued that a lot of them really aren't going for the education. They're just going to further their athletic career. So essentially, the idea is that on one side, people believe that, I guess the integrity of college sports should be maintained. You shouldn't introduce a financial incentive for people to go to different schools. And on the other side, it's like college athletes should be paid. They're essentially, these schools are essentially minor league teams. Or semi-professional teams, or practically professional teams, and the students should be paid. So that's where it is right now, and the Supreme Court's currently hearing those arguments from different parties. What do you guys think? Should college athletes be paid? Like, what do you think about it?
One quick question before you answer that. The Supreme Court thing, like, what's gonna come out of that? Or what do they expect specifically to come out of that?
Well, one way or another. Either the NCAA is going to set up a pay scale or a stipend system or something along the lines, and athletes are eventually going to start being paid, or the status quo is going to remain in place. The comedy too is a lot of these athletes, they actually do get paid under the table. So, especially in college football. And college
so here's kind of like my thing: is the idea to let them have more control over making money, about things that are like in their likeness, right? That's kind of like the catchphrase I constantly hear. Like,
well, it's all types of, it stretches across the whole gamut. So you actually brought up a really good point. I guess we can get into a little. I might as well get into it now. The NCAA and other entities could actually profit off of the likeness of NCAA players without them being compensated. A notable case was Ed O'Bannon. He's from the 1995 UCLA team. By playing actually an NCAA video game, he found himself on a Legends team, and he had no idea why he was in the game. No one contacted him. No one asked for his permission. He was not getting checks, and it turned into a lawsuit, which I think in the year 2014, NCAA reached a $20 million settlement with various former athletes in order to pay them for doing that. But I don't think the NCAA is prohibited from using their likeness still. Because I know that case was specifically in California, but I think as it stands now, I don't think there's any real ground that has been made, but that's a part of the conversation.
I think the likeness would be the first domino. If and again, I believe if correct me if I'm wrong, the Northwestern team that sued for to be unionized, I believe that they won their case, I believe, or they won the civil case at least on the lower level before it got to the Supreme Court. So yes, the likeness in terms of being able to sign autographs, or if your jersey is being sold in this bookstore or the pro shop, you should be able to get some royalties off of it. Royalties at least, or an agreed upon percentage. That's the first one before direct compensation into performance, a la professionally, with base salaries and sign-in bonuses and incentives and so forth and so on. So the likeness would be the first domino. And I believe that there is a strong case to be made, especially in 2021, that this conversation should really gain traction. You know what I mean? Because the pie is only getting bigger and bigger for the schools. They're like college basketball and college football, especially with the inflation of the dollar. They're only making more money every single year with the college, especially with the college football playoff now. And with the invention of that versus the BCS,
which is funny. Not to cut you off, but the college football playoff isn't even sanctioned by the NCAA. A lot of people don't know that. It's its own independent consortium. It gets complicated. So NCAA technically has its own championship for college football. I think they give out first, second, and third trophies, but no one cares. Like everyone cares.
They used to.
Yeah. So basically, it's so weird. But how the best college football team in the nation was determined, it wasn't by the NCAA. It was outsourced to what was recognized by people, which was the AP poll and the coaches poll. Yeah. So these are basically coaches and sports writers who essentially determine what the best team in the nation is. And let's say 2 or 3 teams could go undefeated, and they never play each other. Who's the best in the nation? And popular opinion, kind of popular opinion decides who's the national champion for that year. Recently, they instituted the college football playoffs, which is essentially the same sort of system, but the top 4 teams that are voted into the top 4 teams that are voted the best teams in the nation by the CFB board is they go through a little mini tournament to see who the best team is. So yeah, that's a weird anecdote, but yeah, they don't even it gets deep. There's a lot of hands in the cookie jar, and unless you go to the NFL or the NBA for your average 2.5 seasons on the bench anyway, then you're not really profiting off of this.
Yeah, and another point too, we can get into this as well, dive headfirst into this. I mean, you got to compare the two sports, right? With college basketball, they're fighting to compete and fighting for basically 2 rounds worth of spots. The NBA draft is only 2 rounds. You know what I mean? Versus the NFL draft is 7 rounds with 259 selections. I believe the NBA draft is 2 rounds and about 60 selections. Yeah, and of course, yes, there's the G League and undrafted free agents you can break through, in both respective sports. But the percentages drop precipitously. SAT
precipitously.
If you want to talk about trying to make your way to the NBA from college basketball and basically the odds not being in your favor, plus on top of that, the one and done rule, a lot of these guys, when that was instituted, it was the only reason why that was even instituted was because NCAA was thinking, listen, we're missing out on the Kobe's of the world. We're missing out on the LeBron James of the world. We're missing out on the Tracy McGrady's and the Kevin Garnett's. We're missing out on those guys. We should force them to at least play 1 year, come to our institutions for 1 year. That way we can keep that pipeline of money and recruits and eyes on our product, because they just saw dollars. I mean, they didn't care. Again, if it's one and done, you're not going to get your degree in 1 year. You're not. I'm sorry. That's not how college is set up. So it's it's a lot of moving parts.
So just to formally, I guess, put our opinions out there, even though it's kind of obvious. I guess I'm for it, clearly, if it wasn't obvious from what I was saying. And I did try to look into like kind of like the opposing point of view to kind of see, you know, how it could even make a little bit of sense. But I think that'll naturally come up in the arguments. But I mean, I'm for it. What about you two?
Well, I got to get this point because when I was younger, when I was like in middle school and high school, and I was like hearing about this, I was just like, nah, man, if they start paying these athletes, they're going to start acting like professionals. They're going to be like, you know, I'm going to hold out for more money. And you know what, like, I'm going to go to the highest bidder and I'm only going to play. And it doesn't matter if like how hard I play because the money's in the bank. I thought it was going to decentivize student athletes into like actually, you know, giving their best performance and whatnot. But then the older I got, especially when I went to college, and a lot of my friends who did become, you know, student athletes as well as went on professionally, and I started doing research on exactly what this argument was, then I realized like absolutely these people need to be paid. Like, what kind of business model is that? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to pay your employees. Like, what CEO wouldn't want that model?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of us just like you know, we got caught up in like the marketing of a lot of things, and the older we get, the more we realize that this is just adults trying to scam younger people that are very, very naive about the world. Kind of, because I used to be kind of like that too, like kind of have an opinion about like, well, I guess I felt a certain way about like, I guess really athletes having to kind of fake that they're doing their schoolwork, just because like there's this whole like expectation where you're gonna meet this GPA, and then I was like, I don't understand why they work so hard. This and that. It's like less than 2% of them are gonna make it. Like, you know, they should only be thinking of that as like a plan B. You know what I mean? But it's just like this is like their plan A. You feel me? And it's like my whole thing is like they're. Where I come where they should be compensated is the fact that they're not doing the schoolwork. You know, if they're actually expected to get any type of work done, they're gonna take bullshit classes. And some universities have been bagged already for having these like bullshit filler classes.
Family studies. Family studies.
Yeah, there was I can't remember the exact university, but they had some college. It was like taking Swahili, some random language. But essentially what they did is like the student athletes would get poor grades throughout the year. And then during the summer, they'll give in like paper classes. I forgot the exact terminology for them, but it's a bunch of A's to help bring up their GPA so that they're eligible to play. But because it's just like we all know what's going on behind the scenes, right? But it's like we kind of we, and I'm just saying not us specifically, but we collectively kind of like, you know, like to think like, well, we kind of act naive about what's really going on like in the back door. And you know, at the end of the day, it's like these people are making other people money. And it's like, at least on mine, I'm like, yo, no one's saying give them millions of dollars, but it's just like, you should be paying them for their work. You should be compensating them, you know, more than you are right now, because it's just like, honestly, bro, any industry that makes billions, you got money to spare, son. Don't fuck around. Even like 1% of a billion is still a lot of fucking money.
Oh, it is, and to add to that point, a lot gets lost in this. And when I started teaching sports media and sports journalism, you know, to my students, and we like would deep dive into even what it means to even break through and go pro. You know, the average NFL career is 3 years. 3 years. You know, I mean, your rookie the rookie contract is 4 to 5 years. You know, it's 5 years if you're a top 25 or top 15 or top 20 pick. You have 4 years with a 5th year option. If you're anything outside of the top 20 or in the second round and on in the NFL, you automatically get a 4-year contract. So your average career is 3 years. You're not even going to make it to the end of your first contract. And if you took a bullshit major like bed frame studies or whatever, or you know what I'm saying? Like, what is waiting for you on the other side of the coin when you can't play anymore? You know what I mean? So it's just like, at least of us. And again, I agree with you 100%. No, don't freaking give. Okay, you made it to Ohio State, so your base salary for the next 2 to 3 years until you're eligible is going to be $5 million. Nobody's saying that. You know what I mean? But to have
some people are.
Some people are, you know, depending on who you talk to, you know.
So,
no, let me finish my point.
So basically, no. Finish your point. My bad.
No, my thing is for that. I'm all about the stipend system. That means an agreed upon fixed rate or fixed base salary for student athletes. You can get into the logistics and the minutia when you talk about like the Power Five. And when I say Power Five, I mean the SEC, Big Ten, ACC,
Pac-12,
Pac-12, and ACC. The number is going to vary when you get to the Power Five and the schools that are generating the most money for the NCAA and a college football playoff committee or whatnot. But there should be some type of set stipend base salary that these student athletes are going to be guaranteed. You know what I mean? So that way, again, even if they finish and do make it through to the NFL and break through, or if they don't make it through, because of injury or just because they're not good enough, they don't leave empty-handed with, oh yeah, I got a degree though. Yeah, my degree though. That's gonna take me far because I got this degree.
So I got a question about the stipends. Well, actually, go ahead, Edwin. I'll ask my question after. Go.
No. You could go. I'll just.
All right. No, I was gonna ask a question about like I guess the stipend stuff because like, it's just like that. Well, I guess stipend is just the idea of how you're going to compensate athletes, right? So it doesn't end up in a situation, and I'm not sure. I don't watch college sports. Maybe this is already the case where the schools with the most amount of money tend to have the best athletes. Where I guess one of the arguments behind this is just like, oh, it's going to make it even more in their favor. Is that actually the case now, where the schools that have the most amount of money are also the schools that are like that have the best players? Is that the case?
So that goes into kind of the parity, the parity idea. So parity is just an idea of kind of let's say if there's like 100 teams, there's going to be 10 of those teams that are consistently perform better, that have the best players because they, for whatever track record and things like that, whatever they have. And a lot of people who are against student athletes being paid via stipend or whatever is that the largest universities or the universities with the most money will have the greatest ability to bring in those athletes. So that is kind of like a valid, I think that would be a valid argument against straight paying athletes, like similar to like NFL contracts, like professional contracts. However, I would argue that it's already kind of like that anyway, right? Like there's, you have teams that, that are good. Sometimes you have teams that, perform well, or some that don't, but there's teams that are consistently attracting the best players, that consistently go to the playoffs, that consistently perform for decades. In football, you have your Alabamas, you have your Penn States, you have your Stanfords, you have your Oregons, you have that basketball side, you have your UCLAs, you have your Michigans, you have your Kansas, Duke, North Carolina. There's already kind of like a parity issue anyway. I just think that if you add money to it, maybe schools with huge endowments and that bring in a huge amount of money, like Harvard, will start winning national championships again. Like the Ivy League might be like the shit again. Like who knows?
What a real funny point too to go off of the parity thing is, I think college basketball has kind of figured it out. Especially by expanding.
They have a big ass tournament.
And it went from, I think it's 65 now. It used to be 64, and before that it was 62. Like they keep expanding it because they realize, listen, if we bring these mid majors, quote unquote, from these non-Power 5 conferences, and we just get them in the tournament or whatnot, it's going to get more eyes on the product. It's going to bring in a whole new fan base. It's going to bring in a whole new set of viewers and more viewership, more money, more dollars, more sponsors, more adverts, more dollar signs. You know what I mean? Versus the college football playoff. It's great that they finally decided to have some type of competition and take it out of the hands of voters, you know what I mean, let's just vote for the champion. Let's just vote for the top team. And like, no, have them fucking put them in a tournament, have them play. The best will rise to the top. But here's where that tailors off, because you just have 4 teams. And consistently, it's some type of combination of Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Notre Dame, maybe an LSU will break through, maybe an Oklahoma will break through, or somebody from the Big 12 will break through. But it's usually some type of combination of Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State. It's some type of combination of that every single year. It would be in college football's best interest if they expanded the field and made it somewhere between 8 to 12 teams. Yes, okay, you can give, and to detract the people like, whoa, you're making them play more games. You can do buys. You can have a bye week. Okay, if you ran the table and you won all your games and you're one of the top 2 seeds, absolutely, you should be given a bye. And a team that doesn't have as good of a record and doesn't have as good of a strength of schedule, yeah, they should play an extra game. But the fact that they're in there is going to bring more, is going to do exactly what college basketball did. It's going to bring a new set of eyes. It's going to bring a brand new wave of viewership onto the product and make you more money. But they're kind of set in this, and I think they will expand. I don't think it'll be anytime soon, but I think they will expand. But it would be, to me, it's just a, do you want to make money? I use this argument all the time with freaking Warner Brothers versus Marvel. You know, we could talk about that for the longest. Do you want to make money? Like, do you want to just do what you want to do, or do you want to make money? It's not necessarily the same thing in every single instance. So I'm completely with Ed Boy in that regard.
Yeah. So basically, what are you gonna say?
Nothing important.
Oh, I was just gonna say, because I really didn't give my opinion yet. So basically, what I think about it is it's an interesting idea, because I could see how paying athletes. I don't know. I think it's a bad argument, but I get it. Kind of like the spirit of amateurism and the spirit of student athletes. The idea that you're competing for, your school or your student athletes. You're there to you're there. Like, athletics is a part of what you do, but you're there for an education primarily, or the idea that that there's some sort of purity to amateurism. I get it. I don't think it's a good argument to not pay students, but I get it from that point. Ultimately,
I wanted to add to that. When I came across that argument too, I think they were comparing it to high school sports. Mm-hmm. In regards to like that feeling that you get, where it's just like everybody's amateur, they're playing for the fun of it. And they were kind of saying that some people kind of see college sports as like a continuation of that, like spiritually a continuation of that.
Yeah, well, I would agree with that. I would say the central difference, though, is that the vast majority of college athletes are legal adults. And, I think once you're an adult, you should be treated differently. So, we've arbitrarily, as this society, decided that 18, you could, that you're an adult and you could get shot on behalf of the U.S. government. So we just have to ride with that. So I think like once you're in college, you're treated differently. At that point. Ultimately, I do think college athletes should be compensated, particularly in major college athletics. Now, that's hard to think about when you talk about the sports that aren't as popular. So we're talking about like collegiate, like
sailing,
lacrosse, or collegiate sailing, or collegiate.
Does women's basketball fall in that?
It should.
So I would say so. When it comes to women's sports, it's like I think it would be basketball. Women's volleyball is also pretty huge, but yeah, that is another interesting argument as to, or not argument, but an idea. Who would this apply to? Does this just apply to major college athletics? Because primarily, the profits are coming from men's college football and basketball. Should that be the focus? If let's say if we Thanos snap today and all of a sudden student athletes should get paid, what would that look like? I believe they should be compensated outside of just getting a scholarship and whatever benefits they have. I think they should be compensated. I think they should have some sort of insurance. What else? I want to go ahead. Definitely, some sort of, if they're not being paid directly, some sort of stipend or some sort of trust fund, right? Like they have a set amount of money whenever that they're done. So let's say I commit. Let's say I'm a student athlete. I don't just become a student athlete. I commit for 4 years. Well, based on those 4 years, I get, this is the sort of floor of compensation that I get. So let's say if I get injured, if anything happens, at least I'll be, taken care of in some sort of fashion. Because a huge thing that happens is a lot of college athletes destroy their bodies and they leave with nothing. Like maybe in education if they stick it out. But when it comes to major college athletics, already when it comes from all the way from freshman year to senior year, I don't have the stats in front of me, but the amount of people who graduate aren't the amount of people who sign up. And it's probably even worse for athletes because A, they have to deal with way more stress than the average student. And B, a lot of them come in not, not with the same academic pedigree as other students. So
I wanted to just mention some things just before we keep talking about different ways of compensating athletes, just because one of the main arguments that I saw on the opposing side is, and I know you mentioned that you think they should be compensated more than just in education, but it's them emphasizing the student aspect of it, and then emphasizing the value of that education, right? So I think in an ideal world, right, if you were a student athlete, you'd be able to be an engineer and an athlete, and you'd have enough time for both. And I feel like when they make that argument, that's kind of like the impression they want to give you. And some universities are extremely expensive, right? So it's like, and just to put the argument out there, they're saying like, say Penn State, $40,000 a year. They're like, well, you're kind of getting paid $40,000 a year. You're getting paid $160,000, but the whole thing bringing up is that, right, when you get injured, you immediately lose your scholarships. And that's actually one of the main reasons why, well, from what I understood, is that athletes don't finish university. Clearly, also a lot of them are just probably going for bullshit majors. So even if they finish, it doesn't matter. Something like communications, whatever, jab at them. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to point that out because it's just like they keep saying that that's enough compensation.
Go ahead, boy.
Well, I was going to say, well, here's the thing. Let's say your university is $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year. Let's say I'm the top athlete in the nation and, I'm being featured on television. I'm getting interviews. I'm generating way more. I could probably quantify way more than $40,000 that people are getting paid off of my labor and my name and my likeness. Like, is that really fair? Like I'm just like, I get to eat, I get like a meal plan and and a bunk, and I get to ride the Blue Loop for free, and I have to destroy my body. That's it. Like, that's all I get. Okay.
So one thing I just kind of want to ask also, I guess just to get some clarity on the compensation thing, right? So we have like we have in the professional world, right? We have our superstars that are fucking phenomenal, right? They do get paid way more than everybody else, and I'd argue rightfully so, because they do carry their teams in one way or another. So right, right. Clearly, if we have this in the professional world, we're gonna have this in the, let's just call them semi-professional. Fuck it, they are professional in the college world, right? So when we talk about stipend, are we talking about something flexible where it depends on the player, or is it all around the board?
That's a good question.
Everybody gets the same thing, because it's just like, then we're gonna end up right where a lot of athletes aren't making that much money. And then you get your superstars.
It's more than what they were making before.
Yeah, like, well, here's Here's why there would absolutely. That's a great point, DK. That's an awesome point because there currently now, as it's structured, there already is a pay scale. You know what I mean? Like if you go to the big major schools or big major programs, especially the ones that have had a little brush in with scandal or whatever, the top athletes, like from like a Miami or USC or back in the day from like Oklahoma or whatever, the top athletes are absolutely getting fucking paid under the table. Like that's just facts. Like I've even talked to guys who played in college, and they would tell me exactly like what it was back then and what they were getting or what they'd have access to in terms of girls, in terms of money and benefits and this, that, and the third. So it's already happening. Like let's not pretend like it's not already happening. But to take it a step further, absolutely there'd have to be a pay scale. You know, I mean, if you're a Heisman Trophy candidate, or if you are projected to be a top 5 or a first or second or third round pick in the NFL draft, absolutely your stipend should be bigger than the guy who is 4th on the depth chart. Yeah, he might be there on scholarship. He might be maybe top 5 in his state, which is why he got recruited, but he's not playing, or he's playing seldomly on special teams. So his stipend should not be as much as the guy who's going to be in New York being voted on to win the Heisman Trophy at the end of the season, or the Naismith Award winner, if you want to switch gears to basketball, or a guy that's going to be, a lottery pick, come NBA draft time. So yes, absolutely, I'm so for that. There should absolutely be a pay scale in place because, it just comes down to dollars. Who's making the university more money? Is it the Heisman Trophy finalist, or is it or is it scout team guy or scout team girl? You see what I'm saying? So yes, there has to be a level of checks and balances just from a practical standpoint, because just look at your own regular job. If you know that you have 12 tasks and the guy who works a couple freaking rows down from you or whatnot, he has six freaking tasks or whatever. You know what I mean? If you find out come payday that he's making the same as much as you, the same exact amount, especially after taxes, you're going to feel some type of way. I know I would. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
How's your gross the same as mine? Like I do 10 times as much as you.
Yeah. I would propose some sort of like floor that everyone gets, or, everyone who has a scholarship, or everyone, like maybe there's a floor and then there's like a set performance bonus, or maybe something that they can negotiate. It's a hard question. It's hard. There's so many ways you could go. And I do think one concern that people do that people say is that introducing that kind of money would increase corruption.
You see,
now,
right?
A lot of it, like it's a little. I mean, I understand it, right? Because whenever there's money, there is corruption. I mean, that's just kind of like something. I guess it could be argued, but that's something that most people would accept. However, my opinion is that that's already the case. So, I mean, it would just make something that we just kind of wink at and make it more. I think a lot of the argument against it is just people feeling a certain way. Like people feel like college athletics should be a certain way. They feel like they should be student athletes. Like there's this feel to it, but there's all this, under the table money stuff that happens, people profiting, all these other things. And I just think, why don't we just make it like, why don't we just stop pretending? Like, let's just stop pretending like these aren't basically professional athletes. Here's my idea. This is kind of crazy, right? Well, I don't even think it's crazy, but I would almost think that maybe it would be worth it to decouple the athletics from the university. Like, for example,
crazy.
Penn State can still have a football team that's associated with Penn State, but they're not necessarily by default students. They could have the option to be students if they're on the team. That could be their right. But for those who choose not to be students, they could just be athletes, and then they could be compensated as such. I think that would split the difference. And people who want to be student athletes can be student athletes, and the people who purely want to be athletes cannot pretend to be student athletes and just be athletes. And then that way we don't have to keep this charade up. We don't have to pretend.
I kind of want to build on that, my fault, because
that's so crazy.
Like one of the things that I was thinking was like, right, this whole, I feel like they that opportunity to work, to, study and get, the degree and stuff like that. Like, I think it's still valuable, but I feel like there's that pressure to do it at the same time. I feel like I think the main thing that like worries me is just athletes getting hurt and then pretty much not being able to continue and then losing the scholarship. So I feel like there should be definitely, maybe some base that everybody's getting paid. But I feel like your education should be guaranteed, and you should be guaranteed whatever it is, like a bachelor's degree, X amount of credits, and you can take them now or you can take them later. Well, maybe, maybe you're an athlete and it fucks up, right? Then you could start it then. Maybe you make it big and you never need it. So you just don't even fucking bother with it.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like that if they really say that education is important, like, it's to stop putting people in.
Should be an open door for like, that's a good policy. That's actually, I think that's really good. That's a really good idea.
2024, baby.
Yeah, because like, it takes a real special person to really be great. Like there's that kid not too long ago that was offered a Rhodes Scholarship between, and I think he went to Florida State. He was like, I forgot who it was, but this guy, I think he played for Florida State, and he was offered a Rhodes Scholarship, and he was also an NFL prospect as well. Like that's like a one in like, and he probably had no life, and he had no life. There's no way you could be an athlete on that level and a student on that level and do anything other than just like do work for 18 hours straight, go to sleep 6 hours, and then wake up again. Like, I can't imagine what that kind of life was like.
Well, no, DK, that, just to add off of that, that goes into the idea that I had as well. My thing was, listen, if you're going to have one thing that needs to be put in place to strengthen, I guess, the argument that they're still students though. This degree still matters. Okay, there should be a freaking pathway program to listen. If you get hurt, or you're not good enough to make it professionally, if you take this, if you do this program, this actual major or this program that they create or whatever, this is a pathway to become a personal trainer, or to become a coach, or to become a freaking journalist, to still be in that world of sports, because and which will incentivize and basically give you something to show for it. Like, listen, I put all these hours in, I kept my body right, I put my body on the line. You know what I mean? I devoted all these hours and mentally blood, sweat, and tears to that I've devoted to this university. And you know what I mean? Aside from this 8x11 piece of paper telling me that I made it and have this degree, I need to have something to show for it. Well, if you've got this pathway into an actual career, you know what I mean? That and they've got the money. I don't want to hear that they don't have the money to fund it, because you make billions. So let's kill that right there. You have a pathway program in place that enables these men and women to have careers. Maybe not athletically, because again, they either got hurt or they're not good enough. You know what I mean? But you have a career, you have something in place that is going to incentivize and make it possible for you to earn a living when your time is done. Whether it's on a university level, still at the school, or whether it's even in the professional world, in media, or even in the sport itself. So some type of pathway program, I think that would be, in my opinion, that would be just as important. Because if you could just if it's just stipend, if it's just money, if you're not financially literate, okay, you get 20,000, or you get 50,000 or whatever, but you don't know how to manage it, and you don't know how to invest it, or you don't know how to make it work for you, or you don't know how to freaking buy stocks or freaking invest or whatever. What good is it? It's going to be short term. You know what I mean? A pathway program is definitely the way to go, and some version of it.
You know what really kind of sat with me? I remember watching 30 for 30.
That
documentary.
Was it broke? Was it broke?
Well, yeah, that. But
that was a good one.
Yeah, but I was referencing the one about the Fab Five, and basically the Fab Five were Jalen Rose, Juwan Howard, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, it's this team in the mid-'90s, this basketball team in the mid-'90s, Michigan, and they basically rose to national prominence, being not just some of the most popular college athletes, but some of the most popular athletes in the United States, period.
Facts. Chris Webber.
Chris Webber, Juwan Howard, Jalen Rose, and is it Jackson? I don't remember. But those are the three I remember. But basically, they were like a phenomenon. They had their own, Michigan had their own Nike line with their basically with their likeness, the Fab Five. That was like the name of that was a colloquial name for their team, the Fab Five. And they were talking about how they were out and about, and they went to a Nike outlet one day, and then they saw Fab Five Nike sneakers, and it was them, Fab Five, but they couldn't afford it. Like they couldn't afford anything in that store, and the assumption is that because they were so popular, they were living this crazy lifestyle, but they were referencing, sometimes eating cereal for dinner or having, boosters, on the side, if they wanted a pizza, or if they wanted to take a girl out, they would have to get money from supporters under the table, which is highly not frowned upon, but student athlete, you can't do that. You can't be compensated for your play. That could get you, excommunicated, essentially. A lot of athletes, Cam Newton, there's this whole thing about Cam Newton years ago where he was supposedly accepting funds, and that was like a big thing. So
Reggie Bush.
Yeah, Reggie Bush. Like that stuck with me because it's like, wow, you put in all this work. You're so popular. All these people are making money off of you, and you can't even buy your own shit. That's crazy to me. That's crazy.
You can't even. I think Johnny Manziel, and I think he got cleared of this, but Johnny Manziel, he was signing autographs. He signed.
And he should. He was Johnny Football.
As he should.
He should. He should be able to make as much money as he feels like.
Bro, at one point, Johnny Manziel was the most popular college football player in the last decade, bro. He was that polarizing of a figure. He turned out to be trash when he got to the NFL, but in college, he was kicking up. He was a high school. He won.
No, he was popular. He was chilling with celebrities. He was chilling he was the man.
He was chilling with Drake.
He was the man.
You see what I'm saying?
Johnny Football.
Dog. So yeah, I'm totally with you, and it goes back to the point that we've been making this entire episode. Is aside from money, because again, I'm just speaking facts, guys. I know a lot of these guys are already getting paid anyway, so it's
and they should, and they should, as they should, and it sucks because they have to go through great lengths to hide what in my opinion at least is rightfully theirs. That's crazy to me. That's crazy. But yeah,
there's got to be something in place for them. Something has to be in place for them.
Yeah, let's not pretend student athlete, that whole idea of a student athlete is definitely a thing. Most people who are athletes at school are student athletes, but when it comes to major college athletics, when we're talking about $1 billion industry, it's let's not pretend this is just student athletes. This is something different. This is professional shit. Let's stop pretending. Let's stop pretending that that's the case.
Not just that, bro. But
it's so weird. Why do people want to just keep the status quo because it makes you feel good? For what?
Video of that white football player with the big ass neck. He's supposedly super nice. I don't know his name. But
bro,
he was
that narrows it down. Big white guy with a neck.
I'm gonna have to find the video in my thing, man. But he was just crying. He was like, "No, this is if I would have gotten paid mad money, this and that." I gotta find this whiny
Bro,
motherfucker.
the cats that say that, especially I know it's older folk. You can't tell me it's not. Like the ones that are saying, listen, if you start paying these student athletes, it's going to corrupt the sport. It's going to corrupt the brand.
Tim Tebow said that. All of that.
It's going to corrupt. That's funny. That's Tebow. It's going to corrupt. It's going to corrupt these young men and young women.
Oh, the irony! The irony of Tim Tebow of him saying that he actually made it to the NFL. Interesting.
Exactly. And Major League Baseball too.
Interesting.
And no, but it's from, you know what, the people that are on the soapbox saying that it's going to corrupt and all this corruption, it's from the makers of the ones that say,
it's not going to change. It's already like that.
Not just that.
Let's just not pretend.
It's from the makers of those saying, "Oh, listen, if you pay all these people the stimulus money or whatnot, they're not going to want to go to work." Absolutely.
It's like why do we pretend like marijuana is still a Schedule I drug? Let's pretend like people don't smoke. Let's pretend like people don't smoke marijuana. Like like what? Let's just pretend like like all these. It's just so silly. I mean, I guess that's a greater thing, but I don't know. I just think
it's from the makers of that foolishness, bro. You can't tell me it's not.
So and Kareem, oh my bad. What are you saying?
No, go ahead. That's more important.
I was just gonna say Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Shout outs to him because he's always been vocal on many issues, but he's one of the biggest, most highest profile proponents of college athletes being paid, and I really respect that. I watched CNN Crossfire, like an episode of that, and they were debating it. And it's funny, on one side was Van Jones and the other side was Newt Gingrich. And Newt Gingrich was actually on point with his opinions. It was hilarious because he was on the side that college athletes should be paid, and he was with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Van Jones was with some sports writer lady. I don't know her name, but it was just very apparent that the arguments on the other side just didn't make sense. It was always some appeal to some sort of ideal or standard
to your morality
that's not grounded in any sort of reality at all.
No, and that's what pisses me off.
And it's just like, oh, like come on, like even if you want it to be that way, it's already not that way. That ship has sailed. Like let's just not pretend.
That's what pisses me off with these traditionalists, bro. Like they're on their soapbox and they cape so hard. Like, listen, it's gonna corrupt these people and it's gonna like take away from the integrity. And what about these people that laid the groundwork before them?
And they stand for stuff that they have no fight in. These are these people who are not college athletes who aren't directly affected by it, and they basically want their unpaid unpaid athletic slaves to tear their ACLs for their enjoyment and give each other CTE. Like, oh my God, it's so fucking.
So this guy Tim Tebow, he was crying.
Tim Tebow. I'm gonna call him that from now on. Tim
Tebow was crying about the California amateurism law that I guess passed last year.
Yes.
Do y'all know anything about that off the top of your head?
Yeah, I know a little bit about that. I know that it was about two schools in California. They got the ball rolling. I don't know if it was about video games or it was about likeness. It was something in the world of that. And
was that the $20 million settlement that they got?
I believe so.
Oh, that was from that.
So yes. They basically were like, listen, we should make money off our likeness. This is bullshit that we haven't been making money off our likeness. And we're just going to we're going to get together. We're going to make it a class action lawsuit. And they won. That to me, that's one of the first dominoes. And I think Northwestern, like we talked about earlier, they freaking, I don't know if it won on the Supreme Court level. I know it won on a lower level. They freaking sued to have a union, to be unionized. Like, yeah, we should have fucking health insurance. Like you think you can't get CTE in college? You see what I'm saying? You think you can't get long life altering injuries on the collegiate level? Especially with the way these athletes are built now. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, dog, Division I college football, they are stronger and faster and more deadly than ever before, bro. Because these cats are just like, listen, we got to be the best. We got to be the cream of the crop, or else we're not going to get drafted. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, so with that in mind, the injuries, of course, are going up and the risk goes up. And if that's the case, they should be compensated as such.
I wanted to kind of quickly go back to that Northwestern unionization effort, just because I think that's kind of pretty important, because they're trying to go about it. And maybe this is the only way, but the specific way that I understand they're trying to go about it is being able to refer to their athletes as employees, because once they're employees, they can unionize, and then after they unionize, they have more power, and then they can start, getting compensated correctly.
Yeah,
which I think is pretty dope.
It has to start there. It has to start with a unionization and them suing for their likeness, because that's going to lay the groundwork. It's like a domino effect, bro, or snowball effect, however you want to put it. That's going to lay the groundwork for them to be like, okay, now we want to be paid for performance. You see what I'm saying? But they've got to have some type of precedent to start with, or else their argument's not going to have legs to it.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But I don't know. I think in closing, I mean, all of our opinions are pretty laid out there. One thing that we didn't square and is about athletes when it comes to sports that make less or no money. What of them? I still that's a little different. I think maybe there needs to be a part 2, but I think that's harder, because once you remove the sort of massive money machine that's behind everything, things get a little bit murkier as far as that. But yeah, I mean, my overall opinion is that people in major college sports should be paid, compensated somehow. We could work out the details, some sort of stipend, trust fund, ability to attend school in the future, some sort of compensation more than a degree and CTE and torn ACLs,
Facts. And on top of that, I know we touched on this lightly, but the NCAA with their foolishness toward female basketball, women's basketball, like
that was some bullshit. That's crazy.
Like for our viewers,
that's disrespect.
For our viewers who don't know, there was a athlete. She played on the Oregon's women's basketball team, and so she showed a freaking TikTok video of what the gym, quote unquote, looked like for the women's basketball teams in her region of the tournament, and it was just like 8 weights and a mat. and by comparison, they showed the men's one of their sites, just one of their workout sites, and then their argument was like, "There's not enough space." So she was like, "Okay, we're gonna do another TikTok video to show you guys how much space is available to us." Because again, a lot of these like sites where these games are being played because of COVID, they're nowhere near full capacity. So there's tons and tons of extra space and extra room, to install workout equipment and benches and weights and treadmills and Peloton bikes, whatever they need. And on top of that, they showed the food as well. Freaking looked like the Fire Festival in terms of what the women were eating versus the men with their freaking gourmet spreads of anything you could imagine, vegan and non-vegan. In terms of food selection. So after the TikTok video went viral, had over 1 million views, the NCAA stepped in and was like, "Oh, wait, we'll fix it." And then they made the necessary adjustment, so to speak. But the fact in 2021 that is still a thing, kind of like racism, is hilarious. So the NCAA, get your shit together, man. You guys are bugging.
At least they gave the male athletes caviar to go along with their twisted ankles and broken dreams. They got
a Cinnabon stand for every team and everything.
No, yeah, we won't pay you, but we have an Orange Julius in every fucking.
Hell yeah! Like Salt Bay comes after every freaking meal for you guys, but we can't pay you guys though. Sorry. Oh,
oh man. Well, Yeah, that's I've exhausted my contempt for the current system.
Over 9,000. The scouter.
I have nothing more to say.
Has the scouter broken over 9,000?
So I guess to summarize, right? If you say there isn't enough money to go around, you're an idiot. They make over $1 billion, billions. Get out of here with that bullshit.
Cap.
If you say they're students, you're stupid.
Cap.
I'm sure it's more complicated than that, guys.
Complicate these nuts in your mouth.
He would.
Is it gonna ruin the integrity of sports?
Yeah,
that's been ruined. So that's an argument.
So we're gonna ruin it some more. Okay, I see you.
No, pay them. Just stop fronting. Pay them.
I see you.
Pay them, and that's the base.
Rundown. Ezekiel.
Nice shot. Yeah, oh girl, I love the way she do it. To get